Jacob,
Hi.
welcome to Mexico.
Thank you very much.
It's a privilege, an honor, and a thrill to talk to you.
Oh, thank you.
Let me just elaborate a bit. I've been doing by now 5 programs dedicated to following your whole discography, and this was started before I learned that you were coming to Mexico.
Oh, wow.
So it's a godsend.
Oh, amazing.
It's amazing. No, it's more than amazing, because I want to tell you that personally I consider you an artist that's absolutely extraordinary.
Oh.
And I'm not just being hyperbolic. It's because your whole history and what you have achieved up to now is really an harbinger of the things to come.
Oh.
Right? So let's get started at the very, very beginning.
Okay, thank you.
Can you recall the first moment when music entered into your consciousness, your taste for it?
Well, it was always in me, I think, and always around me. But I do remember when I was 2 years old, I sat on my mother's lap, and I look up and I see a violin on top of me, and you hear the sound of the violin being played. These kinds of feelings and emotions never leave you, because I was inside the harbinger of the music, you could say.
Of course, you come from a home where, thankfully, music was all important. And for that, I must send my very best regards to your mother.
Oh.
Your mother, I think, has been instrumental in your history.
I would say so.
So, exactly. And but still, this image of this character from a cartoon, Little Lulu, poor Toby, who had to go take violin lessons that
Yes.
he hated, and his teacher hated him, and everybody, it was terrible.
So bad.
But I gather that you or your mom managed to make it an exercise that was playful or something that you enjoyed. I can't imagine you being forced to study music.
I was never forced, and I'm so grateful that I was never forced. Sometimes I was asked, "Oh, would you like to play this?" And sometimes I say, "Yeah." Sometimes I say, "No." I remember when I was 2, I started playing the violin, and by the time I was 4, I'd stopped playing the violin because it was just too tricky, and I wanted something that gave me immediate results,
Okay.
and there was no problem there. So no worries, it's fine. But there was also piano in the house, and there were bits and pieces around, and I think for me the spirit of play is within everything I think about and listen to and enjoy. I think what my mother was able to give me as a child was this idea that everything in the world is speaking to you. Everything is awake for you. So it's like you tune in like a radio to the world, and you can make magic go in, and then magic will come out as well. And when you play, there's no such thing as a wrong note or a bad choice. You play as you want to play. And then over the course of studying and learning and deepening my interests, you come up against certain principles. You think, oh, I want to understand this. I want to go deeper into this. But at the heart of it is always play.
And that's why in English you call it playing music.
Yes.
That's a big advantage, I think. Now, of course, I always say whenever I have a microphone handy that the message from the sponsor is, all you fathers and mothers, please give your children a healthy, balanced musical diet. Make them listen to a lot of different music and let them make their choices. I find that children are excellent musical critics.
Yes.
But beyond the canon of concert music that I gather your mom made you very aware of, what were your first personal choices? What music caught your fancy as a kid or even as a teenager? Whatever.
Yeah, gosh, so much music. I remember Bach being in the house, so important for me. Stevie Wonder as well.
Oh, okay.
Bach and Stevie Wonder side by side, beautiful. Stravinsky, Bartók, Benjamin Britten, Bobby McFerrin, I remember hearing singing, beautiful singing. Queen, I remember being in the household. Sting was very important for me too. And just so many different kinds of people, but I didn't think of them as different from each other. I just thought, oh, there's this, of course, and there's this as well. It all makes sense to me,
Well, that settles it, obviously. And but when you were being brought up, you were, I gather, ahead of most of your contemporaries in terms of knowledge of music itself. Did it make you more popular, or did they hate you because you were so knowledgeable?
Well, when I first started learning about music theory and how music fits together, I didn't like it at all. And I sat in the classroom and I thought, music theory, are you serious? This is so boring. I just want to play. I want to play. And then when later on 16, 17, 18 years old came around, I was so ready to discover things, I think, on my own terms. And so I would make up my own words for things, So I remember finding a sound, finding this sound, the other. And I'd say, oh, this feels like this in my head. And actually it was quite joyful when I learnt the common vocabulary amongst musicians, because then I was able to communicate, oh, you know about this thing as well, we can share it. But I think, I always had a very, very vivid inner world. The space inside my mind and my heart and stuff musically was very kind of deep privately, but I also loved playing with other people. So I think it was a balance, and I never sort of tried to flaunt my knowledge on other people. Oh, I know this and that, the other. You suck or something like this. Because I think there's always something to learn, and the more you do learn, the more you realize that you don't know. And so everybody in the world can be your teacher. Whether it's a real teacher or your mother or your children, your students. Everybody can be a teacher to you if you just wake up and realize that. So I've never thought of myself as more knowledgeable than other people, but maybe more interested sometimes than other people.
Of course, our attention gets caught by the fact that you can do so much on your own. However, I did want to ask you, did you have small combos or collaborations before having these famous collaborations that we listen to you nowadays?
Yes, I did. Well, so when I was growing up, there was lots of playing together. So in my family, we sang 4-part Bach chorales. We sang little arrangements I would make for my family to sing. And I used to play a variety of different instruments in school. I played drums in the jazz band. I played bass in a folk band, like a tango folk band. And piano in the end was what I settled on as the home instrument for me. But I think those principles at play, it's like having a conversation. You learn when to listen, you learn when to contribute something, and the balance of all of those concepts, you learn how to pronounce things, how to spell things. But most of it comes from the instinct. So I made a lot of my first music recorded by myself, and that gave me quite a strong foundation in terms of skills, like knowing how to achieve a sound. If I want to hear a sound in my head that goes, I know how to achieve this sound, or something. I know how to build it. I know the recipe. But so I think I loved the process of finding it for myself. But then after the solo album and the solo tour, I had such a relief when I was collaborating with other people, because it was constantly like a new perspective or a new story was discoverable. And that made me very open in a sense. And I had lots to learn, but it was a really joyous thing. And it was like reconnecting with the first collaborations I did, collaborating with my mother when I was 2, 3, 4.
And well, there's this sort of cliche that if you study music formally, they will clip your wings.
Yes.
No? And you will never play jazz, for example. So even some teachers tell you have to make a choice.
Yes.
All right?
Yeah.
But I think this nowadays translates more into how you relate to technology. And you have done that brilliantly.
Oh, thank you.
That is, being from your generation, you took to modern technology, digitalization, and that sort, almost naturally. But you have achieved very artistic and very inspiring things with it.
Oh.
Whereas technology is supposed to be cold, what autotune does to so much pop music nowadays, make it samey and robotic. And so I would like to hear your comments on how you got to terms with technology.
Yeah, well, I was lucky because, as you say, I was brought up in a time where it was natural for me to be exploring it. And, the family computer was a very fun place to spend time because all sorts of things are possible there. And I learned a lot about music from my first instrument, really, that I fell in love with deeply was a little keyboard, like a Casio keyboard. And there's, 100 rhythms and 200 sounds, so you go through all the different sounds. It's wonderful. And the rhythms, you have, bossa nova, you have polka, or, have rock and roll, you got, trap and rap, and all that. And you go through and you think, wow, this is what music is like. So I became friends with it in a sense. It was my teacher, and I was then able to prod it and poke it. And I think I had a healthy attitude to it in the sense that I liked it when it broke or when it misbehaved. You think, how can I make this be interesting? It must be able to be interesting. And I think that a lot of my attitude towards technology, in a sense, it comes from wanting to collaborate from it and poking it. So I think I can learn something from this, but also not taking it too seriously. So, it's the same with playing an instrument in a sense. It feels like that to me. You kind of extend your intention through a brain, like an external brain, and you learn how to factor in things that matter to you, and then how to export things that are cool and that feel good and that connect people. And I think there is a lot of technology was designed to, you could say, to set people down a line. There's lots of algorithms nowadays that command how we listen, how we make music. But you have to learn how to toe your own line in a sense, and then all those components can be interesting, as long as you don't take them too seriously, and as long as you don't take yourself too seriously. But I'm very grateful for technology, because I think it's enabled me to learn so many things about myself and about other people. But also when I was growing up at 12, 13, 14, I heard so much music on the internet. You think, I'm interested in, how, say, Bolivian Huayno music. I'm interested in how this works. And you type it into Google, and there it is. And you can read about it, you can listen to it, draw your own conclusions from it. That's amazing. What an amazing privilege to have access to that kind of world. And, as long as you commit to doing things for the right reasons, and follow your own goosebumps, your interests, then things always lead to interesting places.
Well, one last thing that I would like to ask you about, and it's because I think it's a big subject, is that it's almost obscene that you were gifted with this privileged voice that you have, this such range.
Oh, thank you.
And such fine tuning that you have. I'm talking about micro tuning.
Yes, right.
You can work almost as if it were an electronic instrument.
Right.
But also, you're an amazing multi-instrumentalist. And it seems a lot for such a young person. How could you start taking on other instruments and being more than able with them, being actually brilliant with them? It's really, well, as you can see, I'm taken aback with you.
Yeah. Well, I never thought of myself as somebody who had to achieve certain things with instruments. I think if I thought, I'm going to learn these 10 instruments and my goal is to be very, very, very good at them, or to win competitions or whatever, then I don't think I would have come at them maybe as openly. But to me, it doesn't matter if I play one note on an instrument, or I can make a sound, or if I play 1,000 notes. It's about the way the notes feel, and I think the same is true with the voice. I've been very interested in what the voice can do. The human voice is the most beautiful instrument, I think, on the planet, and every single person in the world has one. They're all different from each other, and what happens when voices combine together, that's it for me. And when I was a child, singing in choirs, wow. I used to hop all the parts around. Sometimes I'd sing soprano, sometimes I'd sing bass, and I'd follow what note feels the best. And sometimes I'd even write notes into the score that weren't in the score, and you start adding things in. But I think, I don't take myself too seriously. I know I have so much to learn, all these different instruments, but the fun part of music making and producing music, especially now, is just the way, the infinity that you can combine together. And you don't have to be very, very proficient at an instrument to be interesting. You don't have to be very highly qualified or highly trained to make something of value. You just need to start doing something. And in my earliest of experiments, when I was very, very small, I wasn't a brilliant singer or a brilliant piano player, but I was definitely interested in making things that excited me. And I feel like in some ways it's the same now. I'm just interested in doing things that light me up. And if I can light myself up and light my brain up, then I'm sure I'll light somebody else up as well. And I don't mind too much about trying to be good or trying to be right. I think, I'll try and be honest. And that's always a good place to start.
And it's also a great place to end. But I have to be abusive and ask you in closing, could you please give a message to so many young musicians in Mexico who are brilliant nowadays and are looking for an audience?
Yes. Oh, gosh. Well, I would say first you need to make things for yourself. Don't try and make things for other people.
Okay.
Make things that you love. And if you dig into those concepts and those feelings, then you will find your people. It's like you become a magnet to people. And an audience is a funny thing to think about, but an audience is very relieved when you are yourself and when you're not bending into somebody else. And I think the most important thing you can ever cultivate with an audience, or whether it's one person, 10 people, 1 million people, whatever, is trust. You know, you say, I'm going to do things that I love, and these are things that are made of me. I'm going to be honest with you. And if you know that about me, then I can go anywhere and you'll always trust me. You know, and I feel really lucky personally because I've never really conformed to one particular idea of I have to do this in music. I've done it all. I've done all the things I've wanted to do so far. And I think that people trust that I will do things that matter to me. And so I feel free in a sense. But if I'd wanted to build a big pop audience and, you know, win over all the radio and the labels and all the stuff, I probably would have made different decisions, and I don't think it necessarily would have been maybe as open as this or as satisfying as this for me. And I think what's mattered to me is, just the sense of connection with myself and thereby with the people who find themselves in the things that I make. And you have to be you, and you can't be anybody else, and you're the one person in the world with the privilege to be you. So follow things that matter to you, things that are interesting to you, and you will always find yourself in a beautiful direction.
Well, thank you. You've been very generous. You're so talented, but you're also exemplary. And we all thank you for it.
Oh, you're very welcome.
No, thank you very much, Jacob.
Thanks for having me.
Looking forward to listening to you live.
Thanks.